Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and a few weeks ago we had Nicholas Porter on the show. He and his wife Dorothy are co-founders of the Jerusalem Peacebuilders, which is an organization whose vision is to empower Jewish, Christian, and Muslim youth leaders with the skills and experience to become peace builders. Each summer, teens from Israel, Palestine, and America come together in West Brattleboro for an intensive 2-week program. Today we have 2 teens from the program who are going to be telling us all about their experience, and we're very excited to have them and to be able to snag them away from their activities to come on the show today. So I would like to introduce our 2 guests. On our left we have Shai Lenman.
Hi.
Yeah, hi Shai, thanks for coming on. And on our right we have Mohamed Yassin.
Hi.
Thank you, Mohamed, for coming on. It's really great to have you guys on the show. So you've come a long way to be part of this program, and each of you I know has spent some time in America, so you've got a little backbuilding there into what America is like. So first of all, let's just talk about where you grew up. Each of you grew up. Shai, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town called Zichron Yaakov. It's kind of near the north of Israel, very close to the coast of Israel, so very nice scenery. And I grew up in a completely Jewish town, and just with my family and my 2 sisters.
My name is Mohamed Yassin. I'm 18 years old, and I grew up in Tamra, which is northern Israel, very close to Shai. We just discovered that we're close to each other, and I'm really close to also the coast area, like 15 minutes away from the beach. I have 3 siblings, 2 sisters and 1 brother.
You'd never met before,
Yeah.
obviously,
No,
and then
never.
you find out that you're traveling distance away, right?
It was shocking for us to know that we're that close to each other.
So each of you has had some experience with, just call it peace building. If you could just talk a little bit about that, what was it that sparked your interest? What was it that compelled you? And at what age did you start thinking about this kind of thing? Throw it out to you.
For me, this is my 4th program that aims and works to develop peace between Palestinians and Israelis in the conflict area. And if I want to go to what compelled me and in what age, I think I started realizing that I have a complex identity that needs to be explored, towards when I started becoming a teenager, when I started realizing and asking different questions of there is wars and there is like another side that I'm not really fully aware of. It's like I'm close to them, but yet I'm far from them. And I think that was the reason that got me really interested in realizing and understanding what is happening. And I wanted to do that in a peaceful way because I grew up always seeing both sides, whether it's in my family or on the news, being so stubborn about who's right and who's wrong. And I was like, peace can be a way for me to find this compromise or build this bridge between both sides' opinions. So I think that was the reason that compelled me, because I wanted to understand. I was really eager in finding this way that tolerates between both sides, whether they're Palestinians, Israelis, or Palestinian Israelis. I think that's what drew me the most.
Yes, and you were experiencing that in your environment, in whatever town you were living in, but also your family was aware of that as well.
You grew up living. I grew up, and also Shai, but from both different narratives.
Yes.
We grew up living wars. And wars are like something that you always, as a child, wonder if it's big of a deal. But when you get to this point of your life that you're wondering if our war is the thing that is correct, or the war is the thing that is actually going to take us forward, not backwards.
Yes,
So.
right. And Shai?
Yeah, so for me, like Mohamed said, I've always lived with this idea of the conflict. I've lived with it on the news, on the several wars we've been through in our short lives. And I was always aware of the conflict, but I never thought me personally, I could actually do something in order to resolve it or get into peace building. But that changed in 10th grade when I got into the diplomacy elective. And in the diplomacy elective, we studied a lot about diplomacy and more especially conflict resolution. And we gained a lot of skills and knowledge about conflicts and this conflict as well. And I really thought that with these skills I can actually do something. So I started meeting new people in all sorts of ways, and then I got introduced to JPB, which is really my first big step in peace building.
And so when you were in school in Israel, you were introduced to the Jerusalem Peacebuilders over
Yes.
there?
Yeah.
And did you work in the school? Because I know they have school programs as well.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't work in the school program. I wasn't a participant. I got through the JPB through Debate for Peace,
I see.
more especially Model UN. We all of the group are participants in Model UN all through Israel. So JPB, we got introduced there, and yeah, so we're all very passionate debaters.
Yeah.
Really passionate.
And it sounds like you really enjoy it as
Yeah,
well,
it's
the
so much
debating
fun.
process.
Yes.
Yeah.
To learn debating at an early age, you really learn a certain dispassionate or objectivity, certainly, about what you're talking about, and able to see both sides. Yeah, it's very cool.
It is.
When you first came to America, you were in your teens somewhere,
Yeah,
right? But younger teens.
Yeah.
And what were your first impressions? What was it like to come here?
Wow, that's I lived in the West Coast, and I came to America as an exchange student to an American high school. At the beginning, it was really overwhelming because you grow up imagining America like this heaven, and like being in like high school is like High School Musical, and like American teenagers and cheerleaders and football players, and we don't look beyond, because that's what media portray to us when it comes out to the American dream and the American way of living. So my first impression was I was really overwhelmed, really thrilled to be here, but as like, and I'm still always when it comes out to this country, but still like with time you realize that I was blindfolded for a long time in my life, because the community also has its problems, like a lot of aspects that we don't see from our narrative and our point of view back in Israel, and for me that was really exciting to learn about too.
I'm sure completely different than you imagined. You know, having
completely. American high school is such a beautiful experience, but also life learning, because you learn more because of the huge amount of diversity. Because I never went to a school other than Palestinian Israelis. It was a school full of Muslims, full of Palestinian Israelis, and then you come to America and you see this huge group of like differences when it comes out to race, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic situations. Because where I live, we're kind of similar when it comes out to socioeconomic situations, or the students who come to the school. But in America, you would find people who go to your school that like from various levels of in classes.
You were in a public school.
Yes.
In America. Yeah, that is a very different experience. And in America, public and private schools can be extremely different from each other too. Yes. And Shai?
Yeah, so my experience is a bit different than Mohamed's. I came here with my family, with my whole family. We came here, and in the beginning, we didn't know for how long, because we relocated with my dad's job. So I came here in the 6th grade, very scared. I did not know what to expect. And the first half year was very difficult for me. I did love the fact that I'm in a different place, but being away from my family, from my friends, it was difficult, even with my immediate family here. But as I got into school and school programs, played basketball in school, I got to meet all kinds of people and created a whole new familiarity, which I really enjoyed. And in the end, I had troubles going back home to Israel. Yeah.
All of us. It was really hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Because at least for me, I don't know how was it for Shai, there's a huge cultural difference between America and Israel, in the way a lot of the morals and the values that are being embedded within the American community, they've totally shifted with the way how they are embedded within my community and my society. So I needed to maneuver my way around in this first cultural shock that was happening when I came back from America to my home country.
At what age?
I was 16 when I first flew, and came back 17, almost 18.
The leadership program itself, there's emphasis both on your personal processes or processing, and also the group processing. So I would think that a lot of this stuff, you come with these things, right? And you have these conceptions or misconceptions of each other, America, et cetera, et cetera. So can you talk a little bit about what the process is like? Tell us about your day a little bit. if you can.
So yeah, we focus a lot about personal process, but also group, because we are a group of 17 teens that are going through a very difficult process in those 2 weeks, and we are getting to know each other. So our day starts with our breakfast, and we always eat together, and we get to mingle with each other, get to know each other much better. And then we have group activities, which are bonding and kind of difficult to think about. Like they're not just simple ones. They're with a lot of
challenging.
Yeah,
they have a lot of challenge for us, so we can get to bond and
Right.
feel the frustration together as a group, so we can go
Yeah.
like upper level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many challenging activities. And then we do sessions about how to become a leader, what a leader is, how we have sessions about, we just started, so we had a session of how we want to be in a conversation, because talking about the difficult subjects we're talking about can be very vulnerable for me, for Mohamed, for everyone. So we had a really long session about how to make it comfortable so everyone can do it through a dialogue and not a debate. We're just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
Right.
So we haven't delved into the more complicated ones, but we talked about, for example, media and the conflict. How does media affect
the conflict?
Yeah.
Also talked about isms, like multiple isms, like like that I mentioned earlier, like gender, citizenship, equality, age, and how all of these isms can affect your presence as a teenager, and how we view them and how they affect our conflict and affect our presence within our communities and our societies.
And I would think at every point it's also personal, you know, no matter what you're dealing with, all kinds of issues that you've grown up with and that are part of the culture and everything that you've said. We should have you back on next week, right?
Yeah, next week we're gonna have a totally different.
Total different experience.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that we see, like, we have the sessions and then we have breaks, and after the sessions that are difficult, we all go to break, but we actually talk in smaller groups about how we personally felt.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to process that out with other people.
Because you'd be like having this really, really intense conversation, like, and people from both sides, and you would see us going outside, separating our own ways, and you would see like both of us comforting each other, like from whether like me and my other Palestinian friend or my other Israeli friends, like it becomes more or less about separation of who you are, when you come from, and you become more of a friend or someone I want to comfort and make sure that you're actually feeling relaxed and comfortable after the hard dialogue.
Yes. So you feel as if you're forming your own community.
Yes,
like.
we definitely are. It's getting more and more
Definitely.
stronger.
Yeah, and you can feel that even after just 3 days here
Yeah.
and a major rainstorm, you know.
The rainstorm brought us stronger together.
Yeah, it did.
Bonding exercise. We got divided into groups, and we did basically a scavenger hunt all through the farm, which is beautiful. Yeah. So we didn't see it in the dark and rain, but so we had what we had with us was glow sticks. So we had to go through the clues, and then at the end, Nicholas was waiting for us, and we did like this very intimate thing. We told their biggest fear about this program.
And we burned our fears.
We burned it.
Wow.
And we got amulets that
says certain words that we need to like embody and do
carry
and
with
follow.
us during this whole program.
Did you choose those words?
No.
They were given to you.
We took them out randomly. So maybe like in some way the words chose us.
That's right.
Yeah. It was really spiritual. Like for me, my word is honesty, and that's what is expected from me. What's your word, Shai?
My word is justice, and actually when I got it, I was very not sure if that's the right word for me, because I never found myself as a justice seeker. I never thought that was my way in life, but I'm starting to look at it a different way.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because both of those words have so many connotations.
Exactly.
Yes.
And at the same time, I mean, to be able to take them in that way you must really feel that. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah,
That's
we do.
exciting. It's very exciting work. And that was day one in the thunderstorm.
Yeah, that was a great way to start. It gave us a real boost.
And just to go back just one little bit, what was it like coming to Brattleboro in terms of just the foliage and the land and being in such a different kind of climate?
Yeah, it's very different from
really
Israel.
different,
Yeah.
Right now in Israel, it's hot,
Really
very hot and
Yeah.
humid. You won't be going outside very
Yeah.
much.
Or if you do, you'll find me at some beach
Yeah,
nearby.
that's
like,
it.
Yeah.
So coming here on the ride over from Logan Airport,
Yeah.
I looked at the scenery and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And every morning when we go out, it's just beautiful. It's very different from Israel, where like we do have vegetation and everything, but it's just very different from Israel. All the green and all the different kinds of green.
Yes.
Yeah, different layers. Like for me,
Beautiful.
I also, similar to Shai, I compared here to Israel and my city in the north, and also compared it to the West Coast where I lived.
Yeah.
Like it's gorgeous. Like it's really beautiful waking up to this, like this green and I think the location that we are placed in general, and the farm are beyond beautiful. Like it's really spiritual. Like I would sit without my phone and I won't feel bored. But if I would sit in my home, without my phone, I'll be like, okay, I need my phone.
That's
Yeah.
So like the beauty kind of mesmerizes you to a
Yes.
point where you forget where you are and you just like go and in your own world within the nature around you.
I would think it would really support you.
Yeah.
Your day is very structured,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. And so you're going from one group to another and you're working on specific skills as you go along the day. When you come together as a group and you start talking about various things, do you find yourself letting go of certain conceptions that you've carried in light of the conversation itself?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think like I think that yes, we do. We find out new things about Muslims, about Christians, for me, and they find out things about me as a Jew. But I also think that as we are letting go of maybe stigmas and stereotypes, it is very important for me, at least, to get my point out about my point of view of everything that we're talking about. Because if I would just take everything they say, it kind of dismisses the point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I try to understand where they're coming from. And we had this conversation when we talked about media and the conflict. I was very not stuck in my way, but I thought what I was doing was good, and it was making me more aware of the conflict. But apparently there are many more ways. The thing we talked about is I read only in Hebrew and English, and the
can read in
Arabs,
3 languages.
yeah, they can read in 3 languages. So something I took was starting to read or translate what newspapers in Arabic say, so I would become more aware. So that's like something I took from that conversation.
Yeah, for me, it's really similar to what Shai said, but I take it in a different way because I have lived, I think, few experiences. I started like with time. I have this skill of like maybe not letting go of what I believe in, of what I'm so connected to, but more of composing a different path of ideas that I can actually let go of stuff on the other paths that I have taken. So, for example. I would let go of stigmas, I would let go of stereotypes, but it also, through my path, I would try to collect the opposite stigmas, like positive stigmas about both of religions that I'm facing. I also learn how to perceive leadership and how to compose certain ideas and morals and principles that I'm just taking from Shai, for example. Like they're not necessarily needed to be about stereotypes that we're living, but there can be stuff that I'm learning about her personality. And honestly, like through that, I'm learning a lot about myself and how I can deal with certain situations. And I remember in the conversation we had about like media and how it's affecting the conflict, I started also learning of how much privileges I have being able to understand and translate these news and these sources. But I also learned much more about how my position as a Palestinian Israeli who lives in Israel is making me shape certain image or a certain full picture of both sides of the conflict, whether they're living in Gaza or the West Bank. And it was like this conversation, I think the media and conflict was a really great setup for us to build this paradox and like forget about certain propagandas that are being implemented to our generation and to everyone through media. So it's really interesting of how you let go of stuff and it's like shaping your own way, like I mentioned at the beginning, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and the fact that you, that the language thing alone, if you're getting media in 3 different languages, you're getting 3 different interpretations,
Exactly.
Yeah.
which are being translated, probably as well. And that alone, you know, makes a big difference. And you have lived complex lives in your country. You know, your story, Mohamed, you know, about growing up with these different identities. And Shai, you know, the same for you in terms of your culture and being steeped in the Jewish culture.
I consider myself as less of a religious person. I do believe in the Jewish heritage, and I do believe that I do follow Jewish tradition, but not to the fullest extent. I celebrate major holidays, but I view Jewish and Judaism as more of a part of my ethnicity and my culture. And that's what kind of fulfills my background, less the religion. And through that Jewish culture and heritage, that's how I try to interact, and that's how I view this conflict. Less about the religion part for me.
For me, I'm not sure if religion plays a big part or a role of how I view the conflict. It's totally an important major aspect of how the other side of the conflict and how am I being viewed. But I feel that it took me so much time to own my complex identity, because you don't get to understand. And me being a Palestinian Israeli is in my own identification. That's how I identify myself within my community. But if you want to like layer how many identities are given to us or existed within my society, like Arab 48 or like Arab Israelis, and it just like me being able to layer what I connect to, what I owe, like what I feel that I belong to when it comes out to my complex identity was also a challenge, because identity is not it's not a subject that is being discussed. And I think that if we want to relate back, that's one of the reasons I'm really driven to do programs such as JPB, because I wanna take these skills, I wanna take these tools in order to help expose people in my community to these stuff that we grow up blindfolded about, which is finding your own complex identity regarding the conflict.
Yes, and the fact that your individuality is absolutely valid. And it's almost, you know, as you're talking, it's almost like it's facets of something, you know, you've got the layers of things, but you are this individual with all of these different facets, and you're seeing from those points of view, that's an amazing treasure to, you know, to experience. And it sounds like the Jerusalem Peacebuilders, that's sort of what they're all about, right?
Yes,
yeah, for all of you, and to have you together in a group just must be really pretty astounding. I wonder if you could each talk about a little bit about dialogue and debate, because I think that's so interesting. Different ways of going and understanding, being with each other and understanding.
After we figured out how we want to talk in a group, which was a very important conversation, we had our first dialogue, and it was, we all talked with a lot of respect, and we all talked with a lot of passion, because it's a very important thing for all of us, and our views and how we want other people to view us. But we also feel like in more difficult conversations, dialogues, it's going to be hard for us to speak as a whole group.
Yeah.
Because even as talking about the isms yesterday, we talked about it, it got very heated, and we all wanted to say our part. So what we did and what we felt like we needed to do is split up into small parts, into small groups, which was very diverse. Every group was very diverse and with a lot of opinions. And this way, in the smaller groups, each one of us, me and Mohamed, were in the same group, and we each got to say our part and we could fully understand each other's opinion, because in the end, that's what we actually want to do. We came here to learn about the other side, not just to get our point across. So for me to be able to ask Mohamed specific questions in response is a luxury that we have in smaller groups, but in bigger groups, what we want to do is to make every point clear and to actually get our point across.
Following up, that she just said a lot of stuff that I wanted to say, but like if I wanna look from a different angle about it, it just feels like there, as I mentioned, there's a fine line between dialogue and debate. And yesterday, I feel that debate is more given facts, is more about taking what has existed and debating about it with the other side. And when it comes to dialogue, it's a place where your personal stories need to be heard in order for them to be effective. And I feel every and each one of us, like me and Shai, hold our personal stories from so different ends of the road. So I feel that the dialogue is the place that's going to bring those stories and try to embrace them and like make them more grasp within the minds of our peers in the dialogue. And yesterday it was really challenging for us to find this common ground, because for me, I believe that dialogue is that place that all of us need to get to this ground in order for us to understand each other.
Yeah.
And even though it started really intense as a dialogue, and when we got to smaller group, we were able to understand and get our voices fully heard. But I think at some point we're gonna be in this bigger group. So I'm really interested in seeing of how like the dynamic from like being in smaller groups to bigger
Yes,
groups is
right.
gonna, and
Yeah.
how our forces are being transformed into these dialogues and conversations that we're having.
How do you see being a peace builder, becoming a peace builder, and the influence of Jerusalem Peacebuilders and you guys in the world globally? Or is that too far ahead to look at?
Actually, I noticed some of those influences on my life, and I tried to pass them on so we can have the rainbow effect, the butterfly effect.
Yes.
Because I think that's the point of everything. Last year, I was in the previous camp of a JPB, and I broke for myself a lot of stereotypes and a lot of stigmas I had in my head about Arabs, and I took that to my hometown. And every time I would hear someone say an ignorant statement, I would always correct them. I would always break those stigmas for them. And I feel like that's something JPB does. It brings us out here to a beautiful but far away from the conflict. And I feel like back home in the conflict area, what we bring is a set of skills to break those stigmas and to help other people
Right.
move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something JPB has a strong effect in my life.
Yeah. I believe that peace building in general is like us being these leaders that are gaining those skills and those tools from programs such as JPB or Debate for Peace, or for me like Seeds of Peace and other programs, are a way for us to make change. Not necessarily, if not in our communities, at least in our families. Because if I want to talk about myself, my sister is 7 years old, and she started asking those questions of like, what is happening, and why, like, what is Hebrew, and what is the other side, and like when she would go and play in the playground, if we were like in a Jewish city, she would go and reach out to people, and she's like, why doesn't he understand me? So I feel like locally, even to I teach English in summer camps usually, and kids ask me and reach out to me. So like, I believe that those skills that we're gaining from peace initiatives and peace organizations that give them to us young leaders in our own communities, we're the ambassadors that we are going to bring those set of tools and skills to kids to change the future of our and shape the government and the way the community and society are shaped.
Yeah, it's beautiful. This is a beautiful place. It's a great place to stop.
Yeah.
We kind of run out of time, but that you both kind of encapsulated the whole thing. It's really lovely. Thank you so much. So I know that every year Jerusalem Peacebuilders has a public piece, and this year I guess there are two. And just to let the folks out in the audience know, it will be, the first one will be Tuesday, July 24th at St. Mary's Church in Wilmington, and it's going to be a program of music and arts. And then on Thursday, the 26th of July at the Congregational Church, there will be a film and then a discussion by the participants of the Jerusalem Peacebuilders this year. So those are two things to look forward to in our community coming up. You guys are doing just such a wonderful job. It's very exciting, and I'm so glad that you were able to be with us and tell us a little bit about what's going on, and so the rest of the community can know that this is something that's happening in our town. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you out there for being with us. I hope that you're able to tune in again. We will be here next week, and we look forward. Thank you so much.